Are you and your dog struggling with reactivity? You're not alone. The good news is that we've created a completely new approach to managing your dog's reactivity, and it's available for you and your dog right now. Go to positively.com, click Take a Course, and choose Help Stop Reactivity to enroll in this game-changing online course for you and your dog today. That's positively.com. And now, on to the podcast. I have a very special guest with me today on the podcast. Her name is Dr. Callie Harris. She is a veterinarian. And for those of you who loved Pooch Perfect, yep, you'll have seen her on that. She is a veterinarian. I met her actually just recently, but I've heard of her work for a long time. I met her just recently when we were filming The Experts for Unleashed by Dog TV, which I'm sure you guys are already watching now. But she's joining me, and I'm going to ask her so many questions. So Dr. Callie, or Dr. Harris, I should say, be ready, because there's a load of people out there. It's summertime. It's getting really warm.
Yes.
And we have listeners all over the world here. So what can people do to keep their pets safe? But before that, I would love to, first of all, welcome. And then I'd love to know about your journey. I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Victoria. And please refer to me as Dr. Callie. Dr.
Okay.
Harris feels so stuffy. And I'm like, who is that? So please,
Okay.
yes, Dr. Callie works, or Callie is perfect. But Victoria, first of all, I admire you so much and your work. So thank you so much for having me here. I love any opportunity for all the different pet care worlds to collide. And I just feel like more of this needs to be done. So thank you so much for this. And so where do I start? I'm a small animal veterinarian, as many of you guys, or I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a very proud graduate of the illustrious Tuskegee University College of Veterinary Medicine, except for when I was there in the dark ages, it was School of Veterinary Medicine. And after I completed my vet school, I went on to pursue a 1-year small animal rotating internship, which is essentially an opportunity for recently, graduated, or sometimes not so recently graduated vets can go and get additional training. When I graduated vet school, I knew I loved small animals. I knew that I wanted to help people and their pets, but I still wasn't very clear about which area I wanted to dive into. And so what that internship provided for me is still just more of that opportunity to dip my toes in all the different specialties. And the specialty that really resonated with me was emergency medicine. So it was during that year that I decided I was going to go off and become an emergency vet. And so after my internship, I moved back to my home base, which is, again, the Atlanta area, and I became an ER veterinarian. And I did that for many, many years before I transitioned over into industry. And so now I work for the pet food company Purina.
It's, your journey from that. And because I know we're sort of similar in the fact that we both started wanting to go in the entertainment business. Myself as an actor, you as also a performer, news anchor,
Yes.
that. And now we'll talk about Pooch Perfect, but you were able to marry the two. And now you are really marrying the two in a way. But so what then made you change from wanting to be in that entertainment world to now becoming a veterinarian? I mean, that's a 180.
So it's so interesting, Victoria. And, I try, and I still pinch myself with all of the ways that I have been able to marry the two. So a little bit of backstory. I mean, as a kid, I very much was into, being okay with being in front of the camera, right? And way back when, yes, there was definitely this thought and this desire to be on television. And, and really in the early days of my life, I thought I was going to be like a weather woman. I really loved like the Weather Channel here based in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And so there was just so many different opportunities that were starting to pop up, but I had always had a love for science and I always was very passionate about animals. And so when I went to college, I actually started off as a biology major because of that love for science. And again, still not really sure if I was even going to pursue med school or go in the entertainment industry or be a veterinarian. And it wasn't until my sophomore year in undergrad that I made the switch over to veterinary medicine. And it was all because of a former roommate that said, Callie, you are obsessed with pets. Why are you not pursuing this? And so that's where I put everything on hold. All the other dreams, I wouldn't say that they were a dream deferred, but a dream paused because I wanted to pursue, really what was driving me, what was resonating with me. And that was really to care for pets. And so going to vet school, it was always in the back of my mind, how can I still maintain this way to be in front of people, to have a bigger platform? To utilize the creative side in me, right? And it all comes together, Victoria. Like there's no way to put it. It's just, you continue to have that passion, you continue to hone in on your craft. I recognize that being an expert in emergency, and then now becoming an expert in nutrition, I knew that I had things to say. I'm also really big on just the people who love their pets. A lot of people think that going into veterinary medicine, it's only because you care for animals, but that's so wrong. I care for the people who also care for the animals. And so I think just taking these different buckets and figuring out a way to have a voice is really what drove me into trying to figure out how I can get in front of someone's camera. So it's all been, some of it's been luck, some of it has been drive, and all of it's passion. So I'm really grateful to have had, the different ways for me to show up and be able to support the pet loving community.
When we have students at the Victoria Stilwell Academy and we ask them, we always like, what is your why? And if
Yes,
you don't have a why right now, you find it
that's
because
it.
your why truly is your passion, that your
That's
why
right.
is going to drive you. And I'm interested in this that you went straight into emergency medicine because
Yeah.
isn't that like a baptism of fire, really? And don't you have to be a great problem solver?
Yes, all the above. What's really interesting, I've never heard a baptism of fire, and I think now I'm going to use that all the time because that's exactly what it feels like. And if you had asked me while I was in vet school if I would ever think that I would end up being an emergency veterinarian, I would have laughed in your face about it. I remember the old show on Animal Planet? It was ER vets or emergency vets,
Yes, yeah,
which was based in Colorado. And I
yeah.
remember watching that and being so in awe of basically these heroes. They were my heroes, but I never imagined that I would be somebody else's hero, right? But honestly, this is what it's a true testament to Tuskegee. Working in, a lower socioeconomic environment, which was Macon County, a rural environment, very different from where I work now, right? I had an opportunity to service all different types of pets. I got, a diversity in the patient population as well as the clientele. And
Mm.
so that really did help, drive me to become more of a problem solver, and this is not a dig against other vet schools. I love all my other colleagues from
Mhm.
all the other different vet schools. But what I can tell you, and working with so many vet students from across the country, depending on where you go, you are really immersed in this ivory tower gold standard approach to medicine. And when you're working in real life and working with real people with real challenges, right? You have to be able to diversify how you show up in your exam room, how you speak to this client versus that client. And so all of that really did help train me to be able to think quick on my feet and to be open to seeing all different types of cases. And so that really was the precipice to me becoming an emergency veterinarian. And also my internship. So I have to give a shout out to my 1 year small animal rotating internship. It was based in North Carolina, Cary specifically, which is a suburb outside of Raleigh. It was a private practice. It was called Veterinary Specialty Hospital of the Carolinas. And when I arrived there, I truly was like a fish out of water because I had come from this really nurturing environment at Tuskegee, right? A very family-based vet school to now I'm in this, much different socioeconomic experience, different clientele. But the good news was that I had that training from
Mm.
before. So yes, there was a little bit of, there was definitely a transition period and some adaptation that had to take place, but I really do owe that year of my internship to also really truly expanding upon my knowledge of emergency medicine. So it all works out. And ER medicine is so fun, Victoria. Like, yes, it is a baptism of fire, but it's like what I can't imagine not having those years under my belt. And I still do that on a relief basis. I love being able to help people in real time, fast based. Let's get to the root of the problem. I am a big picture kind of veterinarian. Let's take a step back and then let's dive in. Details are important, but sometimes you can't get into the details when you have a critical patient that's coming in. You're just trying to solve the problem as it comes. And so I had no idea that that was in me, but it's something that I really enjoy.
I know that the times that I've had to take my elderly dogs, I have always had a lot of elderly dogs. Well, I
Yes.
mean, I've had dogs and they've come to me at 5 years old, or one is at 11 years old, and so
Yes. Bless your heart.
and then two with vestibular issues,
Oh, yes.
which sudden onset, which
It's so
manifested
scary.
itself in different ways. I have to say, the emergency vets was amazing. The first one I went to was like the people behind the counter weren't very nice, and I was
Yeah.
panicking because I got a Labrador that just I didn't know. I thought she was having a
Sure.
seizure, and
Yeah, you
she
thought she was dying.
right. And they weren't very helpful. But the second
Yes.
time that I went with my Shih Tzu, they were amazing. And so
Yes.
thank you to them for helping out. And then, of course, my dogs went on to live very successful,
Yes.
lovely lives as
Yes.
seniors. But that was very scary. How do you deal with the
Yes.
people when they're absolutely in
Yeah.
panic because their animal is suffering? Or like me with Sadie, for example, my beautiful chocolate Labrador, she got up. She sort of ran into the backyard. She
Mm.
kind of didn't know where she was. She started running around, started to like
Yes.
fall everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God. I
Yes.
piled my daughter at the time, my daughter's friend, my husband was there. We
Yep.
got her into the car, rushed her up. We had no idea what was
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Vestibular disease in
I
senior
know.
pets.
I know. And I have so much to talk about with that topic too, because it's one of those things that comes on so quickly and it can feel like their life is ending. And I am so happy that you did exactly what you're supposed to, pile everyone in the car and get them to your nearest, your local emergency veterinarian. And so when I think back to like what the experience that you had as a scared pet parent, right?
Yeah.
This is your family member and you have no idea, even with your background, and I don't know if you're anything like me, Victoria, when it comes to my own pets, I need somebody else to doctor. So,
Right. Yeah, but
so I'm
I
sure.
didn't know. I didn't know what was happening. I'm not a
Exactly.
vet.
Exactly. And so I will say, communication is so important. When I'm talking to that next generation of vet med, especially those who have the aspirations to go into emergency medicine, it's not just about saving lives, it's about talking the pet parents through it, right? And explanations. And sometimes they have to be very quick. So you have to be an excellent communicator to be able to get across something very serious in a short amount of time. And also something else that we do in emergency is that we offer a menu of opportunities, right? So what that means is there's going to be a cost perspective to anything within vet med, right? These are services that cost, but in the emergency setting, it can feel even more intense and more elevated because now you're in a critical or, emergency scenario. You're not able to go to your regular veterinarian. It's after hours. And so a lot is being thrown at that pet parent. And so going back to communication and doing it in a way that makes sense, that's palatable, that's in sound bites has been something that's been very helpful for me to be successful in the ER world, and something that I continue to share, again, with the younger generation. And that I'll say too, just having like an even temperament. I mean, we're all emotional creatures, but I think and this is not something that I knew initially when I first started working, right? This is something that you grow into. I'm sure you have had that same experience in the trainer world, like how you started off
Mhm.
in day one versus where you are now. There's
Mhm.
just so much experience underneath our belts to where it really does make you more of a seasoned, expert in that scenario. And so that's how I feel. It's just understanding what their pet parent is coming from, obviously identifying the problems within the pet and trying to solve it. And sometimes here's the other aspect of it too, Victoria, which is going to be hard for your listeners, for my pet parents, for my friends, from family members. Sometimes even when you do your best, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And that is a conversation that I've had so many times with
Mhm.
loving pet parents, pet guardians, from children all the way up to the elderly who have, where that pet was their lifeline. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but then let me provide a way for us to provide dignity and care and compassion even at the end. And that was a big part of what I did as an ER vet.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because yes, I mean that's I do feel like customer service is just vital, and especially when you're in those situations where we're just really scared. We're panicking
Yeah.
because our loved one is going through something that we don't understand. When my Shih Tzu had vestibular disease, it manifested itself in a slightly different way,
Hmm.
and I suddenly woke
Hmm.
up to this. All I can say was screaming, and
Oh,
she was like
just
flipping like a
terrified.
she was
Yes.
flipping like a
Yes.
crocodile, and then her
Yes.
head would bang on the floor, and so I was
Yep.
desperately trying to get cushions underneath her. And I
Yes.
thought, well, this doesn't look like what happened with
The
Sadie. She
other.
was able to move around,
Hmm.
so I don't think this is maybe the. So again, getting her up, but it was. How
Yes.
common is
Yes.
vestibular disease in seniors?
Yes.
Because
So you've now had
two dogs
two.
now.
You've had two. So I will tell you, here's a couple things that I will share. First of all, our senior pet population is getting larger. And why? And what I mean by that is that dogs are, and cats too. I don't want to leave out kitties in this conversation, but our pets are living longer than they did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, definitely 30 years ago. And so the number of pets that you're going to see that have these senior related challenges like cognitive dysfunction syndrome, also known as doggy dementia, old dog vestibular disease, or idiopathic vestibular disease is what we refer to it. That number is only going to continue to rise because the number of senior pets in our world are continuing to rise. And so some aspects is kudos to us, to the pet parents, to the veterinarians, to the medical staff, because these pets are living, much longer lives. But I would say, in my experience as an ER vet, we would see it fairly common. I wouldn't say that every senior pet is going to deal with idiopathic vestibular disease, but I would say enough numbers of senior pets are going to maybe be afflicted with some element of it to where pet parents need to know more about this particular condition. So then they aren't in this scenario of being panicked. And here's the thing, too, Victoria, it doesn't even matter if we talk about this. When your pet is doing something that you've never seen them do before, even with all the knowledge and the exposure, it's still going to be scary. And so I would still say, when in doubt, even if you're like, that looks like vestibular, you are still making the right choices by bundling them up and getting them to your local vet, no matter what, because it could, in that particular instant, be something different.
Yeah, it absolutely it could. And fortunately for us, it wasn't. And when you say idiopathic, you really mean unexplained.
Yes,
You don't know
no,
why.
we have no idea why this is happening, is what I will tell a lot of my pet parents. And it's just more common the older that they get. Now, there's like a lot, like the pathophys, when we think about the pathophysiology, like what's happening from an internal standpoint, many people can relate to having vertigo, right? I suffer from vertigo. I don't know if you've ever had
Yes. Oh,
vertigo.
yes.
So it's
Horrible.
very similar to that, right? Vertigo can impact humans anytime at any age, but it is something that does tend to get a little bit more amped up as we get older on the human side. So it's very similar on the pet side as well. When we think about the motion sensory apparatus, which is going to exist within that inner ear, there's these little balls called crystals that can get out of where they're supposed to be, right? And that can be triggered by stress. It can be triggered by position. It could just be triggered because, again, going back to that idiopathic, I have no idea why this is taking place. Some dogs, some pets have really bad ear infections. So that's why I'm sure the veterinarians that you saw in those separate accounts were, looking into those ear canals and testing to make sure that there wasn't an infection that was taking place. But it really is just the motion sensory apparatus gets off, those crystals get moved, and you just have to weather the storm. The good news about vestibular disease is that it's very rare that it's life limiting, right? Very rare that it's life ending. And that is like the good news that I'm always super excited to share with my clients, my pet parents, when I go back into the room, like the good news. Yes, this is something that we can manage through, right? And so it requires a little bit of supportive care, some time, some patience, but more often than not, they recover very beautifully from this.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, 3 days later, my Sadie, well, it was 2 days later that we were able to take her out of the ER, but I had to have a harness for her back legs.
Yes,
I had
because she
to
was a
just
bigger dog.
She was a
It's
bigger
different.
dog. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I had to like really support her for a while. And then
Yep.
we had to make where she was able to be much smaller so that she
Yes,
wouldn't bump into things. But
that's
she
right.
very just with time and as you say, patience, she came through it and then she
Yeah.
was back to normal. And I'm like, girl, you freaked me out so much. And now
Yes.
here you are. You're like, woo doo woo, here we go.
And please let's not do that again.
Yeah, let's not do it. And then the same with my Shih Tzu. I mean, they went on for years afterwards. So,
Yes.
yes, if that happens to you,
Yep.
try not to panic, but you might panic, and that's okay. But
Yes, and that's okay.
take your dog to the emergency vets. And
That's right.
the cost of it is like, well, that's I could like send my kid to college for this,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
it's they're a family member and it's what you have to do. So, okay, Tuskegee.
Yes.
Now, very famous vet school.
Yes.
You're saying, though, however, when you went there was some certain limitations.
So Tuskegee, it's such a unique space. So just to give a little bit of backdrop, Tuskegee University, a lot of people, they're familiar with the Tuskegee Airmen,
Yeah.
right? That's when people think about Tuskegee, they think about the Tuskegee Airmen, which were, a group of amazing fighter pilots that participated in a war that really didn't want them in it, even though their talents were far beyond, what was needed and what was
Mhm.
necessary, right? And Tuskegee, just the historical concept of the school, this is an HBCU, which is a historically Black college and university. And so it was founded by Booker T. Washington. And it was founded as a result of trying to provide a space and place for African Americans to get higher education. And especially in a world where that wasn't accepted, for us to be in other universities. And so I owe so much to what we refer to as Mother Tuskegee. Still many years later, even in a time where I could go to any vet school that I wanted, the fact that university is still present is important and it must maintain its legacy. As far as where it's located, if you've never been to Macon County, Alabama,
Whoa, yes.
it's
I'm like,
it's it was a little bit of a culture shock for
yes,
me coming from the Metro Atlanta area. It's very
yeah,
rural.
very.
There's a lot of land, there's a lot of farm animals. There's not a lot of restaurants and grocery stores. And so I'll never forget, I pulled off the exit with my mom as I was going down there for my interview. And I wanted to start crying because I was like, Mom, how am I going to survive? There's no Starbucks.
Yeah, yeah, right.
But then once I made my way, we snaked our way through the very quiet streets and made our way to the campus. And that was where my entire just attitude shifted. The campus is expansive. It's beautiful. You can feel the richness of the history.
Mm.
Booker T. Washington is actually buried on site
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah. And so
Ooh.
along with other notable figures and people from his family and educators. And so you just feel the legacy just by being on
Mm.
campus.
Mm.
The vet school is separate from the undergraduate campus. And so when I got to the vet school, I was met by so much warmth and,
Mm.
passion and intellect. Like it took my mind away from the fact that I was in rural Macon County, Alabama. And so after my interview, I was sold. I was sold on the experience, and I was just so floored, so excited when they offered me a seat into the class of 2008. What makes it a little bit different is that, yeah, it's in an area that does not have a ton of money. There's people of all different backgrounds that live in, Tuskegee and the surrounding spaces, but they come from different walks of life, again, different socioeconomic statuses, different levels of education, and also different priorities. And so you are having to learn how to navigate offering medical care for pets depending on what that pet parent is going to allow you to do. And here's the news flash: that is real life. That is what I do in Metro Atlanta right now. That is what people are doing across all cities, rural or urban, across the country, right? So that's what made it unique, is that as a vet student there, we had to really be scrappy, and we had to learn how to navigate different challenges that maybe you're not going to have to navigate in an Ivy League institution. And so I think that that really did just create this sense of resilience, and the ability to offer multiple solutions. And I carry that to this day.
So when you graduate from Tuskegee, then then you start working.
Yeah, just like any other vet school, it's a 4-year
Yeah.
program. So many of my classmates graduated vet school and just went on and started practicing,
Mm.
right? Whether it was general practice, small animal, large animal, some went into lab animal. So very similar to graduating any other school in the country. I would say from my class, it was like a small percentage of us that wanted to pursue an internship. And that seems to be on trend with a lot of vet schools. A lot of people don't realize that during that internship year, you are making close to pennies, and it's a very hard year. And so folks will make a decision to bypass that and just go out into practice and get their career started. For some of us who want to pursue, residencies or specialties, or like me, wasn't sure what she wanted to do, an internship just made sense. And so, that was the reason why I made that decision coming out of Tuskegee. But many of my classmates went on to open up practices,
Wow.
and just did their own thing. And that's been the continued case even since I've graduated.
And what was the main thing, if you could distill it down, what's the main thing that you saw? What did you have to deal with most of all as this new graduated, now veterinarian? What are you dealing with?
Yeah. Oh gosh, just the main thing. Um, I would say, and this is probably true for a lot of different careers, but juggling work and life. And that's going to sound so cliche. And I will go a little bit deeper for vet med, because as a veterinarian, this is still truly a career of passion. And I will even tell people that being a veterinarian can also be a bit of a privilege, because you think about this, you have dedicated many years of your education for, protecting animals, to the medical, care of animals, right? And when you get to the end of it and you start comparing salaries and start comparing like what other medical professionals make, if you were to just look at the dollar and cents of it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, from
Mm.
all the money you spend for school, the, sacrifices you make, and then what you're ultimately going to be dealing with as a veterinarian, from, the pay to the experience. It may not line up exactly to what it might feel like for an MD. And my brother-in-law is an MD, so we've had these conversations, right? But what I will say, when we talk about the work-life balance, veterinarians often struggle with this because, again, this is such a career of passion. And so we dedicate so much of our life to saving animals. And when we're unable to be successful, just like what we talked about even on emergency. When sometimes some days when you're unable to be successful, it definitely can drag you down. It can make you feel like, why am I here? I'm a failure. And there's just so many thoughts that go into your mind. And then when you partner that up with pet parents, pet guardians, who this is their family member. And so they're coming to us with this expectation for everything to be solved all the time. And I get it, because that's why you're coming to me, for me to solve a problem. And if that pet parent has not been explained appropriately or does not receive the messaging appropriately about the reality of the situation, there can be a bit of, just a miss in the communication, right? And then that can feel very challenging for the veterinarian when that pet parent now has walked out of the experience not feeling satisfied. Veterinarians take a lot of blame for
Oh gosh,
things,
yes. Yeah.
and we're tough. We know how to manage it, but this is again something that I share with that next generation. Like these are the other sides to being a vet. It's not just puppies and kittens and rainbows and sunshine, right? It is, working through real life scenarios. And so again, to try to bring it back to one point, I think that work-life balance is always
Mm.
going to be something that we're trying to achieve as veterinarians.
I'm here with Dr. Callie Harris. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about summer tips for your pets to keep them safe. All right, we'll be back in a minute. Have you discovered the completely redesigned positively.com yet? When you create a free account at positively.com, you can enroll in fun, accessible, and free online courses to help you and your dog live your best lives together. Join the community completely dedicated to supercharging your relationship with your dog at positively.com today. That's positively.com. I'm back with Dr. Callie Harris. We're having a fantastic conversation. Now I want to pivot a little and talk about summer. How do you keep your dogs and your cats and your pets safe during the summer months? And here, of course, in Atlanta, it's different. We have a lot of people listening from the UK that maybe don't have this
Yes,
issue as much, but
yes.
here in Atlanta, it gets very hot.
It's not just hot, Victoria. It's humid.
It's
It's
humid.
tropical.
Oh my gosh. So, I think the message is pretty good out there about keeping your pets safe. People tend not to walk their
Sure.
dogs in the middle of the day, either in the
Yes.
early morning or the evening. And, everyone knows every year we've got, don't leave your dog in a hot car, don't
Yes.
leave your blah, blah, blah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. But I still, because I live near a walking path.
Yes.
I'm
Uh-huh.
still seeing people running with
I
their dogs
know.
at like
I
4 o'clock in the
know. I
afternoon
know. I
when it's been
know.
90 degrees and the
I
dog is having,
know.
but so
Yes.
I don't know how that's going to get into their brains.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. But
Yeah.
um, let's go. If you're worried, if you've taken your dog out for a walk and you think your dog is overheating,
Yep.
A, how can you tell? And
Sure.
B, what do you do?
Yeah, great questions and great comments, because I think at the end of it, when we see people that are outside interacting with their pets, it's because they're trying to do something positive. And that is something that I always say, like, nobody is running their dog, out of malice. I personally, I'm not a runner, so you won't catch me out
Yeah,
there running
me
with my
neither.
dog
No.
at any time of the day, but kudos to those runners, right? And so I always remind myself of this. And I think exactly what you're doing, Victoria, by the continued conversation around it. So hopefully more people will hear us having this discussion and know that that midday heat especially is just, it's critical, for us to avoid that for our pets. And so when I think about even the continued conversation around this, think about ways to engage with your pet outside of taking them outside, the home, the apartment, water activities, right? This is the time for those any size dogs, as long as you've tested them that they will like the water, right? This is the time to bring out that hose or that baby pool. Or if you have an actual pool and you feel comfortable with them swimming, or you can put little floaties on them, or you can even walk in the pool with them. This is the time to incorporate those water activities, especially if you want to be outdoors with your pet. I love what you mentioned as far as like looking towards different times. So I still encourage folks, if you want to have those long marathon runs, do it first thing in the morning,
Yes.
maybe last thing in the evening,
Yes.
because here's the thing, the middle of the day, it is hot for all of us, but the way that we exchange heat as humans is going to be very different on how our pets exchange heat. Plus the energy, the metabolism of our pets are very different from us. Water exchange, very different. And then when you bring in the fact that some of our pets have shorter faces, are brachycephalics, have more narrowed nostrils, have shorter throats, then it's really causing more of a challenge for them to breathe in what you would consider just a balmy 80-degree weather. For them, that feels like an inferno. And they're also trying to please their pet parents, right? You guys have instilled this human animal bond. They see you with the leash, they see you putting on your shoes. So they're not going to naturally make the decision, oh, it's too hot for me
Yeah,
outside,
right.
I'm going to go sit in the corner. No, they're amped up. They're like, well, shoot, my human's going, let me go too. So ways that you can tell if things are not going well for them. Certainly excessive panting. And I'm not talking about just the mouth is open and we're just, again, exchanging heat. I'm talking about the tongue is hanging out. That panting looks more labored. You start to see that their gums and their tongue looks first more injected, meaning reddened. And then when we start to get more in a critical scenario, it can start to get a little bit more ashy in coloration, blue, indicating that now we're not able to really oxygenate appropriately. I would say if their body carriage, so ears flat, tail tucked, head down, hunched posture. These are all very good physical characteristics that could indicate that they're not having such a great time in that heat. Even before you get to that, them slowing down. I have seen so many pet parents that they're running in front of the pet and they're kind of dragging them
Oh,
along.
yes.
When you're having to drag your otherwise happy, boisterous pet along, it's time to stop. It's time to stop. It's time to consider picking them up if you can. It's time to consider phoning a friend and getting someone to come and rescue you guys, because they're giving you that early indication that maybe I'm not able to keep up. Something else that I will share that a lot of people don't realize, and I've seen it firsthand. I've treated a lot of heat exhaustion patients in the ER. But sometimes the initial telltale sign is them also getting nauseous. So if they start vomiting, right? If they have loose stool on that walk or that run, that could also indicate that we might have overheated. So these are all reasons to stop, abort the mission, and seek help.
Now, what can you do yourself? You say your dog
Yes.
hasn't become critical yet. Well, you don't
Yes.
think, but what can you do yourself? You
Yes.
think your dog is
Yeah.
overheating.
Yeah.
Do
So
you?
there's
Because there's like, do you use ice
I
or
know,
not?
I know. I knew this was going to come up, and it's still a very controversial topic. So I will explain to you guys how I do it in the emergency room and what I would share with my clientele. So you don't want to give them an ice bath. I'm not sure if someone has shared that, and I understand the thought. It's like just, completely just douse them in this really icy cold temperature, But the challenge with that, especially if you're not careful, is then it's going to cause vasoconstriction. It's going to cause those vessels to tighten up. And you still want blood flow. You still want things to be opened up so then, oxygen can be exchanged. And so if you have like a shirt that you're wearing or a towel that you're carrying, I would say cover that with water, maybe water from a water bowl or a faucet, and then just start wrapping their extremities. I start from the bottom. So start wrapping their extremities like their paws or their legs, just starting more, I would say away from the heart, away from the vital organs first.
Mhm.
You can also lay a wet cloth around their torso, but you don't want it to be ice. You don't want it to be super icy cold where it's going to feel like a shock to the system. obviously, if they're still able to drink, offering them not large amounts of water, because right now you might be in this interesting balancing act where they're super thirsty, but then they might vomit because they're also a little bit nauseous. So giving them just small amounts, or if you have ice cubes and going ahead and feeding them ice cubes, these are all ways that you can try to get that temperature to lower in a safe way. Finding shade. People bypass this, but finding shade, like immediately just find a place that's covered, because we already know that right in front of the sun versus a shaded area, there's going to be a vast difference in the temperature. And so just getting them into a space that feels a little bit cooler will also be beneficial.
This is really important advice. And I'm glad because, yes, we've heard so much of like ice, get ice, get as cold as possible. And then you hear, no, don't use ice.
Yes.
So I definitely go towards the not use ice.
Yes.
But I think it's something that every person, I think every dog owner should know about
Yes.
just basic first aid anyway.
Yes. I agree.
But
I agree.
but understanding what your dog is going through, and it takes every ounce of me. So sometimes, I mean, sometimes I will, if I see a dog in distress, I'll have to say something. But
Girl, you and
when
me
people are
both.
going past, and you can see this
Yes.
like this dog just trying to keep up, and it's awful.
Yes, I know. And so I will say this, Victoria, and I want to share this also with anyone who's listening. Don't be afraid to speak up. I am very big on this, especially when you see dogs in locked cars.
Oh yes.
This
Oh
drives me
oh my
insane.
God, me
Even
too.
if the windows are slightly open,
Yeah.
it does not matter, guys. I cannot say this enough. Like it's not enough air. They're already amped up and excited, so they're breathing faster anyways. It's not going to end well. I've seen it so many times. And so be that person, be that Karen, as
I
everybody
was gonna
refers.
say I'm gonna
Yes,
be like it's not where I mean hot cars, that's it, that's where I'm like
yes, yeah, yes,
but because I live next to a track, I see so many people go past. I'll be like running
yeah,
after everybody going
yeah.
but you're right, in the hot cars, that's the
Yeah,
no-no.
that's the
Not
no-no. And even because I'm saying this to myself too, because a lot of times, we want to stay out of it. We don't want any problems. We don't want any beef. But when it comes to these pets, like it's okay to be kind with, acknowledgement. I'm like, "Ooh, it's really warm out here. Your pet looks a little bit tired. Do you think he's still doing okay? I'm just asking, like just
yeah.
keeping it really casual, because you don't know. You could actually save a life because maybe they weren't thinking about it. And again, I go back to the conversation of people aren't running their dogs in the middle of the day because they're trying to be malicious. They just may not really understand and be educated in this aspect. So I always try to start from a place of kindness until I got to amp it up.
Until you got to amp it up, and I think we're pretty good at amping it up, but
Yes.
in a way that we're not gonna, well, maybe sometimes we might have to insult somebody, but we don't mean to. um
Yes. Yes.
okay, so being a good communicator is really important in your
Yes.
profession.
Yes.
um Now tell me about Pooch Perfect,
Ah,
because
yes.
it's one of the reasons why I think, because you're again, as I said, marrying those two desires, really,
Yes.
that gift that you have in communication, and now going on to
Thank
do
you.
different jobs, including the experts for Dog
Yes.
TV, but also like what made you became a judge on Pooch Perfect,
It's
which was a
crazy.
really popular grooming show, wasn't it? Show about
Yes.
grooming.
It was. It was a creative grooming competition, Victoria, and I am so proud of all those groomers that participated. I'm still friends with a handful of them. I still am in awe of the care and the work that they were able to do on the show, as well as what they're continuing to do in their day-to-day lives. And so Pooch Perfect, it actually started over in Australia. People don't realize this. So the first season, Rebel Wilson was the host. And I also feel like she may have been part of the production team, like maybe a creator, or she provided insights into it, because people don't realize Rebel Wilson comes from a family of breeders and handlers. She's from the
No
dog show
idea.
world.
No
She's
idea.
from the dog, so
Wow.
she's
Okay.
she's one of us, right? She's passionate
Yeah,
about
that's
pets.
great.
She's a dog show, individual. Her mom still participates in dog shows. Rebel and I were actually, messaging about this recently, because I was hoping that her mom was going to be able to come to Westminster that took place in February. So it started off in Australia, and the whole premise of the show was to provide this friendly competition to showcase the just really the uniqueness of creative grooming. And creative grooming is not like your standard, I'm bathing the pet, I'm giving them, the lion cut, and I'm sending them on about their way. These groomers, these experts, really, they're taking a vision and creating art on these pets in a very safe way. So they had a season in Australia, then they went over to the UK, and they had a season there with a different set of players. I think a couple of the judges were the same, but the host was different. And then they decided to bring it over to the US. And that's how I got involved with Rebel Wilson as the host again. Lisa Vanderpump was considered our celebrity judge. And then myself, from the vet's point of view, and then Jorge Bendersky, who is also a celebrity groomer. And so they put the three of us on stage to provide our insight to these friendly, again, very friendly competitions. And I think the reason why I got involved, Victoria, is because, first of all, why not?
Yeah, right. Why
Number
not?
one, why not? I'll never forget, a friend of mine, she's another veterinarian, Dr. Melissa Braver. She had actually seen a casting call for the show. She was on social media and she saw someone share it on like another, maybe a DVM group, a vet group. And she saw it and she was like, oh my gosh, this would be perfect for a veterinarian that I know. So she sent it to me and we laughed hysterically about it because we were like, how this is never going to happen, right? But then I just put together a quick portfolio. I had done quite a bit of work for Purina on the media side, so I already had a body of work that I could send to the casting producers, and I sent it. And I still never in a million years thought anybody was going to even entertain me, let alone email me back. And within like 24 hours, I'd gotten an email saying, hey, we'd love to meet you. So then the next thing you know, I was on Skype because this was during the pandemic era. So they put me on Skype and I had to do somewhat of an interview, but I felt like I was auditioning a little bit. And it felt great. And the reason why I wanted to be there was to be the voice for the pets, right? Like obviously beyond the glitz and the glam and turning, a Labrador or a poodle into a giraffe, there was still this element of pet care that was taking place. And I wanted that imagery to be elevated. I didn't want people just to see, a giraffe walking around. I wanted people to understand that during that experience, there was human animal bonding that was taking place, that groomer was putting their hands on that pet and evaluating and discovering if there was anything that was off or different that they could share with the pet parent. And so there's so many elements to grooming beyond just the aesthetic aspect. And so I wanted to really have an opportunity to showcase, to demonstrate that and provide that voice to it. And then again, just making sure that no pets were harmed, right? Ensuring that they were having a good time, and they were. And I think that whether you like the show or didn't like the show, what I can tell you is that it really did just put, this element to pet care on a platform for now everybody can understand what goes into it. And that's something that I'm very proud of.
I have such respect for groomers and just I say regular groomers, but I have such
Yes.
respect for groomers because obviously having a Shih Tzu during the pandemic when everything
Yes.
shut down, I got my grooming kit sent to me,
Yes.
and that poor dog, the first time that I got those clippers on her, that poor dog, I mean, I was like, forgive me for what I have done to
Yes.
you. It's not, I mean, I tried, we had lots of peanut butter,
Yes.
we had fun, but she looked a disaster after I'd finished. And I mean, I
Yes.
got a little better in it, but I was like, I have such respect for groomers. This
Yes.
is an art, whether you're doing that kind of grooming or
I agree.
this is an art. This is a real
Yes.
skill.
Yes. And shout out to all the groomers if anyone are listening, because I know how difficult it can be because you're managing, all different types of pets. that come in from different levels of socialization, and you're still expected to produce, this end result that everybody's happy with. And they
Yeah.
go through a lot of training for. I've worked a lot with different groomers and have had a lot of great conversations. And I will say that there is an opportunity for us to do better with collaborating, like from the vet world and the groomer world and even the trainer world, because
Mhm.
the number one goal is the health and wellness of these pets, whether we're trying to shape it from a behavior or medical or, aesthetic standpoint. And so I just have to say that groomers, they're my heroes. And I am like you, Victoria. I have tried many times to make my own pets look good and realize that this is not an area that I excel in. So
No, 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 no. I mean, we've got our lane. We should stick in our
that's
lane, and
right.
that's fine.
That's right.
Um, we have to finish soon, but before we go, I'd like to talk briefly about how we can attract more
Yeah.
young people to these
Yeah.
professions, whether it's dog training,
Yes.
grooming, or becoming a veterinarian.
Yeah.
Understanding that, in so many ways, going to school can be really expensive for
Yes.
people. So,
Yes.
how do we attract more people, and how do we attract people from other communities, right?
Yes.
How can we get a real diverse workforce here
I
to help
agree.
animals?
Yeah, gosh, that's a whole nother segment.
It
And
is,
so
it is it's a massive,
so we
actually.
we
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 can't be brief about
but
this. I
but
mean,
but I will tell you this, like just to be really succinct about it, I think, the continued visibility of the work that we're all doing. And I feel like social media is providing that. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten messages from parents from different walks of life, that have said, my daughter, my son, they have never seen a veterinarian that looks like you. And now that we saw you on Pooch Perfect, or now that we found your account on Instagram, this is what my child wants to do. And I'm so excited and we want to do everything we can. And so I think just visibility is going to be key. So you keep doing what you're doing, Victoria. I'm going to keep, spreading the gospel of vet med. I think too, going as early as possible to motivating these minds. I think a lot of people feel like, okay, get them in high school. Get them in middle school. Uh-uh. Go to elementary schools. I have a
yes.
child who is starting first grade. She is so impressionable right now. She is like a sponge. They are absorbing any and everything. And it doesn't mean that it's going to stick, but I think introducing them to these different careers very early on can only just open their minds to the possibilities. So start young.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you can achieve, I mean, I'm a great believer. You can really achieve anything that you want to do. You have that drive, that passion, and that work
Yes.
ethic. You can achieve it. So,
Yes.
this brings me to the end of the podcast. It has just been an absolute, I mean, it's so lovely. When I met you doing the experts, again, guys, you got to watch. Dog TV's Unleashed. It is,
Yes.
and our show's called The Experts, where we answer viewers' questions on all kinds of
So
subjects,
good.
trainer perspective, and then a vet
Yes.
perspective. It's
It was
brilliant, isn't
great.
it?
Yes.
That, you really can, you can do anything. And that's where I would like, if you want to come into these businesses, hard work is going to get you there.
Yep. Hmm.
And I think, both you and I really, we started from the ground up.
Yeah.
It's we didn't have any help.
Yeah.
Yes, we didn't like
Yeah.
follow our vet dad or
No,
our
nope,
trainer
not at all.
mother, or we didn't.
No, I mean, I had supportive parents, but they definitely are not of the sciences or, animals. But they supported me,
Yes.
Victoria. And
Yeah.
that's all. And we all are going to have different support apparatuses, but I think what you said hit it the nail on the head. Like, just believe in yourself. Believe you are the one. You're going to be the creator in this whole experience. And there are other, tools along the way that you can pull out that's going to be supportive. But right now, it's just have that drive, have that passion.
Yeah, and that surely that will get you everything. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And I always say to people, be curious. Always
Yes.
be curious.
Yes.
Curiosity is, when people kind of want to overtake your world or overtake the world, they're going to try and dampen
Yes.
your curiosity.
That's
They don't want you
it.
to think, but but think, be curious,
Yeah.
read,
Yes.
experience. And my gosh, that opens the world to you. So I always
Yes.
tell people, if you feel stuck, open your mind. Read
Yeah.
a different book that you never would have read before.
Yeah.
Experience something that you might never have experienced before. Become curious, and you can get what you really desire.
A hundred
Um,
percent.
and yeah, you might not become working with animals might not make you rich, but but
Maybe rich in other ways.
rich in
I, you
other
know,
ways.
I feel fulfilled. People still ask me, if you could do it all over again, and I would ask you the same. Like, if you could do it all over again, would you still choose this career path? And 100% I would.
Yeah.
I have felt so honored, and I still have more time, hopefully, to discover and uncover different ways to show up. But this has been the greatest career. It's been beyond imaginable to be in this space. And so even on the hard days, even on the days where I
Mm,
have questioned,
mm.
why am I here? You get beyond them and you just realize that as you're serving a greater purpose. And so I would 100% do this again. I hope you feel the same.
I absolutely do. If people want to find out more about you, follow you on Instagram, where do they go?
Yes. Yes. So please join me on Dr. Dr. period Callie, Callieh. So Dr. Callie H. I answer messages. I love having conversations. No question is too stupid or tough. Let's talk about it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Callie Harris, for joining me on the podcast today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
Thank you guys for listening. And wow, what an amazing episode this was. I learned so much. And yeah, I know that I'm going to have Dr. Callie Harris back again because she's so amazing. And hopefully we get to work together again on another series of The Experts. Or you never know what happens in the future. But thank you guys so much for listening. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on another podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to Victoria Stilwell's Positively podcast. For Victoria's online dog training courses, more information, and helpful dog training tips, visit Victoria's official website at positively.com. Get connected on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media as Victoria Stilwell, and follow her on Twitter at Victoria S. Learn to become a professional dog trainer with the Victoria Stilwell Academy at vsdogtrainingacademy.com. And be sure to tune in next time as Victoria helps you and your dog live your best life together, positively.